Oh, Texas, how you've been ruined so. Man, oh man, who thought reconfiguring this damn racetrack was a good idea? Well, Texas Motor Speedway, probably not in the running for worst race of the season, but it's up there inside the top 5 worst races probably. Normally I'm not really, too harsh on races. Texas was a pretty bad race. The only thing that really saved it was some strategy that went on and a fairly decent ending. But I'm not going to really recap the race. Not much happened. A lot happened with playoff drivers, actually, though. Martin Truex Jr. had a loose wheel. Kyle Busch had a horrible day. I think he ended up like 17th and some other things. But otherwise, the playoffs look pretty much the same. Harvick is now just locked in. Truex and Kyle Busch have over 20 points over the cutoff. So unless someone new wins or Truex or Kyle Busch somehow have a wreck in stage 1, it looks like it's going to be the top 4 who should be in, who should be the top 4 in Homestead. So I think that's how it's going to go. But the biggest thing I want to talk about, it was after the race. Nothing during, well, I guess it was kind of during the race. One of the final restarts, I don't know how late it was, maybe with like about 50 laps to go or something. Eric Almirola's on the inside of Joe Logano entering turn number 3. Now, throughout most of the day, drivers had backed off and gotten in line if they were on the outside because, once again, it's a repave. You're not going to have many grooves. But Logano stayed on the outside, as is his prerogative, I can't speak, to go race Eric. This got the 10 car loose, although Logano really went up the racetrack. He kind of left a nice separation to where Almirola could control his car. Almirola just simply got loose down the bottom and almost sucked him around. He got up the racetrack, lost a few positions, cursed at Joey over the radio saying he's already in Homestead, why is he racing us like that? And then after the race went as far as to say he's out of control, and if he makes it to Homestead and I'm not in, he better watch out because it's not going to be an easy time for him. And this is where it gets into the, why does everyone hate Joey so much? So last race, we saw after Truex was mad with Logano, and obviously I would probably be mad if I was in his shoes too. But then you have drivers like Kyle Busch, who called it, he said he got chicken shit out of the way. And now this week, once again, fans are siding with Eric Almirola, saying, yeah, Logano, F Logano, he's a little bitch, he's a dirty-ass race car driver. And I'm just like, hold on. I know Logano has deserved some hate in the past. He's done some things that are pretty questionable. But in the end, he didn't do anything wrong these past 2 weeks. Like, I really don't know what to tell people. This race, he was nowhere near Eric, and Eric just got completely sideways. That was nothing to do with Joey. Truex was bumped out. It was a bump and run. We want more short tracks. Everyone has said, everyone over every single social media platform, more short tracks, more short tracks. NASCAR needs to go back to its grassroots. It needs to go back to the 90s, to the 80s. Back when bump and runs were common, and back when we had more short tracks, and rubbing and beating and banging and rubbing was common. Now, we got what we wanted at Martinsville with the bump, and people complained about it. So, once again, NASCAR will never win with the fans. That's off the subject. But when did drivers become so soft? There were times where back in, Dale Earnhardt got bumped out of the way by Jeremy Mayfield at Pocono on the last lap. Earnhardt didn't go and wreck him under the pace lap. He gave him the number 1 finger and kind of moved on from it. He's like, yeah, I've done it to people, so yeah, I've probably had one coming. He obviously wasn't happy about it. Who would be happy about getting moved out of the way in the last lap for the lead? But, I mean, god dang. These drivers need to kind of grow up and just kind of take a look back. Kyle Busch is the one that called out Logano for bumping Truex out of the way. Yet he or Harvick in that same position would have no troubles getting up to that 78's rear bumper and bumping him out of the way. Absolutely no troubles. We saw it at Loudon. Harvick easily. Harvick at Loudon bumped Kyle out of the way. He said, if I waited longer, my advantage would have gone away. At Pocono last year, Kyle Busch ran Harvick down. Harvick never made contact. Busch just bumped him out of the way in turn 3. So, I mean, once again, you're not going to like it if it happens to you. But then there are drivers that weren't involved that get involved and say it was a bad move. Like, come on, man. You would have done the same thing, I bet, in that same circumstance. So, I don't know why everyone is against Joey Logano. I don't know what he's done to deserve it. I feel like he's kind of redeemed himself a little bit since his past problems, and I'm actually all right with him now. Another thing I want to talk about, repaves. I've said it so many times on here. Kentucky and Michigan. Repaves ruin the goddamn racing at tracks. I understand Texas needed a repave due to the fact that it took like 6 hours back in 2016 to dry the track after it rained for like an hour. But at some point, you have to use material that's going to wear in. We've seen that so many tracks now. Charlotte was repaved back in 2006. The big 2006. 12 years ago. And that track still looks like it was paved just the other day. It has not worn in at all. It looks like it was just repaved. At night in a Charlotte race, you're lucky if you get a top lane without the PJ1. You're lucky if you get a second groove without the PJ1, okay? Charlotte has been ruined because of this. Before the repave, I would argue it was probably one of the best 1.5 miles on the circuit just because of how bumpy it was and whatnot. Then they go and repave it, and they've used this, I don't know what material they use, but they need to use it on the roads where I live because these roads last like a year and they're gone. And this material that they use, it's lasted 12 years and has not worn out a bit. The tires, you could still probably stay on 2 tires and be competitive. Then we go to a place like Michigan. Michigan, okay, before 2012, you could run up against the wall, you could run down the bottom. It was a pretty darn good racetrack. It wasn't great once again, but it was better than what we have now. They repaved it in 2012. Over 6 years ago, they repaved it, and it's still races like it did in 2012, maybe a little bit better. Maybe we have a lane and a half to go. At a track which is 4 or 5 grooves wide, and you can go 4 wide easily there. There's enough room to easily go 4 wide. And drivers are forced to stay in 2 rows, barely 2 rows. It's like 1.5 lanes that drivers are fitting into 2 cars into. I don't know what they used to repave that track. It's not wearing in. You can stay on 2 tires. We saw Boyer. He stayed on 2 tires ahead, the dominant car of the day in the June race at Michigan. As the rains came, the caution came out. Boyer, because he had the clean air, won the race because there's no way around. Kentucky sucked anyway, but they even ruined it even more because, I don't know, it's just repave. And then we go to a place like Texas. 24 degrees of banking on each end of the track. You know, it was a worn out surface. They had to repave because of some draining issues. Okay. Then they ended up reconfiguring it in the process. It's fine if you repave the track. If you repave the track, God forbid, use the materials they used like 20 years ago. 20 years ago, they would repave a track. Within 2 to 3 years, that newly paved track would be worn in enough to where you could run multiple grooves and the tires would wear out. Now, the stuff that they use, Goodyear has to bring in an extra hard tire to make sure there's no blistering and to make sure the tires don't blow out and, you know, cause mass chaos with fans and drivers, because Goodyear will get called out for that, even though it's mostly the track's fault. But so they bring a hard tire, which doesn't wear down at all, and in fact, it probably gets better the longer you run. So then you have drivers that can stay out on like 50-lap old tires and be competitive with drivers that just put on new ones. In fact, probably pull away because the tires are probably better than the ones that the people just put on. And then you have Texas, which they reconfigured turns 1 and 2. It went from 24 degrees of banking down to 20 degrees of banking. And they wind the track out. And my understanding of this is it's 20 degrees of banking, you wind the track out, no one's going up to that extra 20 feet or however many you added. Okay? No one's ever going to be venturing up there. You need to be wrecking to venture up to that part of the wall. Even in 25 years, when the track is worn in finally, no one's going up there because it's way too far up and there's not enough banking to make it usable. Kyle Larson's not going to be running up there. Kyle Larson's going to be running the middle lane if that ever comes in. What they should have done, instead of going from 24 to 20 degrees of banking, they should have gone up. Maybe they should have gone from 24 to 28. Make that, make it steeper. Or just progressive banking on that bitch. We've seen a few repaves that have actually gone right. Homestead, reconfigured and repaved. And it made it better. There are actually some companies that can make it better. We've seen it before. Okay? It's not like it's impossible to repave a track. Kansas, it was repaved in 2012. That was 6 years ago. The same year, Michigan was repaved. And it's already worked in to where you can run up against the wall because of the progressive banking. Texas should have progressive banking like they do. I think they still do, but they should have it better, like Homestead and Kansas. Kansas is basically a Homestead of the cookie cutters. Man. And so they reconfigured Texas. They have 20 degrees banking now in turn 1 and 2. No one's ever going to go up against the wall, even though they're like, oh, you can go 5 wide through there. No one's ever going to be going 3 wide through there, let alone 5 wide. And then, God forbid, the repave materials, whatever they use, I think it's gotten worse. I think in the first race that they ever did at this reconfiguration with the new pavement, I think they had more of a second lane than they did yesterday. And that's saying something. I think the first race at a repave had a second lane better than yesterday's race. So what does that say? It says, first of all, that repaves, obviously, they're never good. And you should never go into repave looking for a good race. If you go into repave with high expectations, if you went to Texas with high expectations, I'm sorry for you. Because I went in with low expectations and I came out pretty satisfied because I had no expectations for this race whatsoever. I really said in fantasy that Kevin Harvick was going to dominate, say he was going to win both stages and the race in dominant fashion. And he did. He led over half the race, I believe. That's another thing. This race is way too goddamn long. No 1.5 mile tracks have 500 miles. Okay, I think the only exception should be Charlotte with the Coca-Cola 600. Otherwise, if you're Atlanta, 400 miles. If you're Texas, 350 will suffice. If you're Texas, drop a fucking date, please. God damn, I hate you. But, so, yeah, I think, I don't know what I was on. I think I was talking about how there's no second groove. But, at least with the the only good thing about the length of the race was that they had to pit under green during the stages. So at some points we actually had some strategy going on with some lead changes, and there was actually a caution that kind of switched everything up. Kyle Busch getting trapped 2 laps down, and Jimmy Johnson had stayed out or something. I don't know, but yeah, it was pretty bad. I think I had 16 lead changes, which once again, that's not bad, but I think most of them were under the green flag. I think the race earlier in the season also had 16 lead changes, but once again, it just wasn't like the one earlier in the season. I think the one earlier in the season had just a little bit more competition than this one did, but that's just repaves. I really hope that these tracks get worn in and that they aren't, like they are, and that they can just get worn in. Please, God forbid, please just get worn in, because, my God, if they don't get worn in, I don't know how long. Michigan, I like, seriously, I love, fast speeds with, running up against the wall. That's Auto Club, okay? Auto Club is basically Michigan, but better. You have Michigan. It used to be worn out. Now it's like it was just repaved two days ago. So, I don't know. Another big mess up that NASCAR did. Before the race, Jimmy Johnson failed pre-race inspection twice, which was supposed to be, I think, a 15-minute practice hold. Instead, some miscommunication errors, and NASCAR sent Jimmy Johnson to the rear, even though it wasn't supposed to. They finally figured this out. Middle of the race, they kind of admitted to it, which is something I'm really shocked, and something that I can actually commend NASCAR for, even though it's a really, 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 really stupid mistake, and it should never happen again. And thank God it wasn't a playoff driver it happened to, but man, it should never happen again. I can at least say one thing, in that they owned up to it, and they have actually done a lot more owning up than I think they have ever done with stuff. I don't think I've ever seen NASCAR own up about something this much. They really know they've messed up, and I'm just glad they at least have owned up to it. It's a pretty stupid mistake to make at that level. Everyone makes mistakes, I know that, but I mean, it's a stupid mistake to make. I hope it never happens again. It better never happen again. If it happens again, then something's really, really wrong. Hopefully they make the changes. Hopefully this is just a learning experience for all. Thankfully it was Jimmy Johnson. He's not had the season we're accustomed to him seeing, so a 15th place finish just looks normal. He probably would have finished around 15th. I don't think the penalty to the back really ruined his race. It just made it a lot harder, a big, uphill climb. But, yeah, I don't really know. Also, loose wheels are a big thing during the race. Keselowski, I think, had to pit. Truex, Kyle Busch had some loose wheels. Harvick, so that was crazy in that regard. Blaney almost had it at the end. I really thought on the last restart, if Harvick would have taken the inside, Blaney would have gotten it on the outside with his push from his teammate. He got a good push on the inside, but he just kind of got down his door and sucked him back. That was really the only shot at green-white checker. What else? I don't know. Oh, yeah, Texas and Kentucky, for all I care, can be demolished, blown into the earth, gotten rid of, and then replace them with short tracks, please. If you're going to attract people to certain places, if A. Gossage really wants NASCAR to not go to the Circuit of Americas and to stay at Texas, demolish that damn racetrack and build a damn short track in its place. Because at this point, the demand is for short tracks. There's not many short tracks that can host a Cup Series race in North America, which is why more need to be built at some point, which is why Kentucky, I think, would be a perfect place for a short track, and Texas would also be a perfect place for a short track. So how about we start making some short tracks, please? I don't care if you have to blow up Texas and Kentucky. For all I care, they can be gone. They're really nothing special. I know Texas is like the hardest 1.5 mile track to drive, but in the end, it's just the same thing, basically. And in fact, it's probably worse because they've just reconfigured it. If they want to go blow up turns 1 and 2 and make the banking steeper again, be my guest. But that's all I have to say. I'm not happy about the race. Congrats to Harvick. It was also cool what he did after the race with the fan, getting him with the selfie in front of the car and whatever. Yeah, that was Texas. Phoenix, Homestead left. Both are on big NBC. Phoenix is usually a pretty good one, too. I'm not going to lie. Normally, this Phoenix race is better than the one earlier in the season. The one earlier in the season was decent. So hopefully it's better. And then Homestead, that's usually a pretty good race, too, because obviously the storyline of the championship, but also multiple grooves and whatnot. Larson run up against the wall. It should be a fun time. Hopefully both these races are good to end out the season on a high note, because we've kind of been on and off. We went from the short track of Martinsville to the 1.5 mile of Texas. That kind of, that's where it's kind of like, man, NASCAR, you've really messed up with these 1.5 miles. So thanks for watching. We're down to the final two races of the season already. It felt like it just started. Like, I feel like I just started watching. I think I'm going to miss this season. So, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys for the next video.